First of all, let me say that I'm deeply honored to play the role of discussant in such an important occasion. To my knowledge, this is one of the first occasions in Italy in which an exchange of this type took place. Therefore, I'm deeply honored. I'll try to be brief, also in order to leave room to the general discussion. I must say that the very interesting presentation by Professor Jingyi allowed us to learn many features of the China's perspective in dealing with the transition from a phase in which the emphasis was on graduate employment to the actual phase in China in which the emphasis is on the quality of employment, of jobs. I think that this perspective is particularly relevant given the fact that as it has been emphasized also in the introduction this morning, China is a leading actor in the geopolitical international scenario of the second phase of globalization, and also the future employment opportunities of some or many of our students, of our graduates, will depend on these developments. I appreciated the presentation, especially for the answers you tried to give to the challenges envisaged on the supply side of the labor market for graduates, and I will limit myself in addressing only to some of them. First, China's higher education system has been characterized by a rapid development leading to the gross enrollment rate to grow from 10.5% in 1999 to 40% in 2016. This is particularly interesting if we remember that the prescriptions of the World Bank at the time were based on the conjecture that higher education in developing countries was bringing about a lower rate of return relative to basic education and therefore should be postponed in the development programs. Well, we could note today that China and also India were trespassing that tenet, and this brought about instead benefits for them in becoming emerging powers. Second point I would like to stress is that this rapid development has been accompanied by a strong effort of government and university, stressed in the presentation, to promote the employment of university graduates. And in this respect, I could say that the case of China could be considered as a benchmark of the perspective fostered by AlmaLaurea since its birth. In a national environment characterized by under-evaluation of the economic impact of education, this has been a cumbersome challenge, and Professor Andrea Cammelli, co-founder together with Professor Fabio Monaco of AlmaLaurea, can be really satisfied together with us today about this robust evidence. A third point I would like to stress is that, as it has been said in the presentation, of course it is very difficult to evaluate and compare jobs quality, also because it implies the consideration of objective and subjective components. If payment levels can assist in the measurement of objective components, on the subjective side, we need to focus on satisfaction, matching, capability, and development prospects. And this is a method pursued by AlmaLaurea since its beginning, and is becoming one of the crucial ingredients of the method of assessment of the university system in Italy in the next years. Let me, however, say that a lot of issues are still at stake because, as also Professor Ye has shown, several disparities, including varieties in regional environments, persist and limit our assessment capability abiding by the rule of ceteris paribus. Expectations of employers about the graduate skills, the demand for graduate labor, are changing also in China, and non-cognitive skills becomes more important side by side with the cognitive ones. My question to Professor Ye starts from here. In a recent work on non-cognitive skills, Heckman et al., character is emphasized. Did you find similar evidence for China? What specific aspects of the technological and organizational change are these changes connected? To what extent these changes could be connected to the emergence of the need of a sort of new business capacities, like the one stressed in the round table of this morning? Do these changes affect in the same way urban unemployment in the China Eastern region and employment in China's Central and Western region? I will go on with further questions and comments. In terms of the job polarization process described in his presentation by Professor Green, where do you think China could best fit? It is more similar to the continental or to the Anglo-Nordic European countries, following the taxonomy suggested by Professor Green? Are there general or sectoral scenarios anticipated in international economic literature you consider relevant for China's future in relation to structural, technical, and institutional change? In some of the Western economies, two main general long-term scenarios seem to play a crucial role for explaining observed trends. These are the robotization scenario and the Uberization scenario, talked about also in the last conference in Naples. Both scenarios stress the prospect of the death of the traditional job performed by a designated agent, an employee. The first scenario, the traditional job is replaced by the robot, while in the second, it is replaced by means of crowdsourcing, outsourcing of an undefined generally large group of people in the form of a sort of open call. In both scenarios, the paradox of a knowledge-based economy with abundant human capital and low pay, combined with unstable jobs, seems to persist. Well, this does not seem true for the other two scenarios we could call sectoral: the green job scenario and the Industry 4.0 scenario that will be discussed in the next roundtable. Which one of these scenarios seems interesting for your point of view. The quality of skills and their objective and subjective components are the outcome of the interaction between what we could call the skill pipeline evolving on the demand side for labor and the skill pipeline evolving on the supply side of labor. In order to improve the strategies of universities and government, do you consider relevant to assess and forecast both sides of the evolution? And if your answer is yes, what methods can be employed in order to better monitor the sectoral composition of the demand side and the educational needs implied by the new organization of labor? The last point, official data show that industrial manufacturing has played an important role as an employment absorber until around 2014 in China. According to authors like Dieter Ernst, new data on unemployment, labor force participation and income inequality raise the question whether China may now moving towards unemployment deindustrialization pattern. Are enough knowledge-intensive service jobs being created in China's growing information economy, which is the necessary foundation for efforts to forge ahead and advance manufacturing? And in this respect, I would like to remember that the State Council of China on May 19, 2015, issued a 10-year plan entitled Made in China 2025. The plan seeks to boost labor productivity through an increase of robot and through network-based upgrading of the entire industrial value chain and related services. How supportive could be this plan in sustaining quantity and quality of graduates' employment? Are there particular features relevant for universities in planning their educational assortment on offer? These are my questions that are intended to be discussed also in the next opportunities we will have to meet together. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Antonelli, for your very accurate discussion of the paper we heard before. I very much hope that you anticipated your questions to the speakers, because you provided them with a very demanding set of questions. Were you prepared to answer to all these questions?
Not all.
If I have the microphone, is
Yes.
this on? Oh. I have the answer to all the questions.
Great. I wouldn't expect less from you.
So as long as you want to stay here for another 2 hours. I have discussed with my vice president. Let me start with the first and second questions. The findings from Nobel laureate Professor Heckman on non-cognitive skills and whether technology change has reinforced that in Chinese context. As we shown earlier in Vice President's presentation, the employer's feedback to us is that we need more training on soft skills, which is more or less equivalent to the non-cognitive skills Professor Heckman emphasized. That was a survey in 2015. Another survey done by the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security also highlighted the same findings. Communications, teamwork, problem-solving skills, communications, etc., etc. Not the hard skills, the disciplinary stuff you learn in universities. And that's much, I think that's very much related to the rapid technology exchange. Because technology is changing so fast, no matter how much we kill ourselves to teach our students, it will become obsolete in a couple of years. So we need to instill the competencies within students to learn, to solve problems, and to innovate on the job. The regional differences within China is huge, of course. The eastern regions is more or less like a developed world, while the central and the western part lagging behind. So I would say the situation, the difficulties and the issues facing higher education and Chinese economy are totally different. The eastern and the more developed regions are having similar issues to the developed world, like the US or Italy. With regard to this question about China this national strategy of China manufacturing 2025, I cannot say whether as a nation will succeed in that or not. I don't have a blueprint. I'm not the Commissioner for National Development and Research and the Reform Commission. But I can only say from the education side that we are forging ahead with reforms of education mode in China. For top-tier research universities, for decades we have tried to improve the quality of our research, not only improve the quality of our research, but also increase the degree and the speed of technology transfer. So, Peking University has a stock exchange listed company called the Founder Group, which has invented the technology to print Chinese characters on computers, and that spin-off has become a multi-trillion business right now. For second tier, third tier, and the technical and vocational colleges, they take on a different role. Their role is to ensure that the demand and the supply of a graduate meet. So they have a different roadmap. For them, we want to strengthen the university-industry linkages. But we don't want the industries to complain after we have produced the students. In many regions in China, the industries have very much engaged early on in the education process. So they will send the senior technicians to the Tibet colleges and universities to become adjunct faculties. They will advise on the curriculum of the Tibet colleges. And they will send us requirements for the kind of students they want. So it's very much in-depth collaboration right now in China in that regard. And through those two-pronged strategies, we hope we can better serve the needs of the economy and the needs of our society.
Thank you very much. I congratulate for your answers. And I ask from somebody from the audience what wants to pose some questions. We have a few minutes. It's 15 past 4, so we have 10 minutes about to question and answers. Take the floor, please, and introduce yourself.
As a clarification concerning the interesting talks from by Professor Ye, thank you very much for your very interesting talk, and above all, for your stressing the importance of the dialogue between, I quote, the education system you're stressing the education system that combines liberal education with professional education. I think this is one of the most important features of Italian education system was, and perhaps still is, even though not one which is sufficiently considered in our latest policies, which are focusing, I think, a bit too much on hard science and are neglecting the necessary dialogue between humanities and hard sciences. So my question, could you please explain a bit more in detail your understanding about the dialogue between liberal education and professional education? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You didn't introduce yourself, or I missed it, your introduction?
I'm Marco Buzzoni, professor for philosophy of science at the University of Macerata.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody from the audience who wants to pose questions? Apparently, there's none. So please, could you answer the question?
The last question is...
Yes, this one.
I expect more questions.
I didn't...
I'm pretty happy.
Please go ahead. Yes.
If you look back the history of Chinese higher education after the foundation of People's Republic of China, we followed the Soviet style, the Soviet model of higher education that very much emphasized on disciplinary trainings. You would be registered in the university as let's say, I'm not in science and engineering, but I would say you will be registered as an engineer for a particular type of minerals, let's say. And since the reform and opening up process in the late 90s and 80s, China sees the weakness of that system. The focus of the training was too narrow. And since then, China tries to address that. And gradually, we move towards the American model of liberal arts education. But because of the old legacy, so we are still trying to find the right balance between liberal arts education and professional education. Our university has a particular program called, liberal arts program called Yuanpei University. Mr. Cai Yuanpei was the pioneering president of our universities in around 1915 to 1920. He himself won the imperial contest in Qing dynasty, the last dynasty of China. And he also spent several years studying in Europe, in Germany, in Italy, in France. That's where he got his liberal arts education. So almost around 16 years ago, we re-established the College of Yuanpei, named after him, to again fulfill his idea of liberal arts education.
In Peking University?
In Peking University. And now Tsinghua University, our neighbor, and the second best university in China. Yeah. Don't quote me on this.
And competitor?
Yeah, our competitor.
Your neighbor and competitor?
They also set up a similar liberal arts college, I think 2 years ago. And Fudan has its own, and many other universities are following suit.
Thank you very much. If there's no other question from the floor, I would like to pose a question myself. You were mentioning, this is one of the most intriguing parts of your paper, you were mentioning that this mismatch, this territorial mismatch between education and labor market, between West and East. Mm-hmm. And you say students may not have noticed that there are more opportunity in the West than they think. Mm. And you say, well, this is a challenge that Chinese university have to face. How do you reckon to face this challenge? What instruments or tools you think you can use in order to cope with this mismatch?
That's the most.
Other questions? Other questions from the audience? No, so we can close with that. All right.
We have a set of, thank you for the question. We have a set of policies to encourage college graduates to work in central and western regions. I wish I had some self-promotion. Our Graduate School of Education has just finished ADB, Asian Development Bank finance, and supported by the Ministry of Education in China, a study on college graduates' employment policies in China in 2016. It's a 100 pages report. I wish I could, if you are interested, I could share that with you. In that, we did analyze the effect of those policies. So the policies we have, we give, first of all, government purchase certain public service positions in the rural areas in western and central regions so that the college graduate can go. In addition to that, the local government will also provide some additional benefits for them. And they can also come back to continue their graduate study. So it's like a guaranteed. You work in the rural area in western central China for 2 years, and then you can come back to work as college to continue your graduate school. Or you can apply for public servant jobs in the eastern regions with some priorities given by the government.
I see. Thank you very much. I posed a question because I think this is going to be an issue at global level in the future. This mismatch may reproduce itself at global scale in the future. So thank you very much. I would like to thank once more our speaker, Professor Jingyi, for her very interesting paper, Professor Antonelli for his comments and questions, and Professor Wei Ha for assisting us and so brilliantly answering to the many questions he received. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.